Hi, good evening. Good evening if you're watching this webinar live, and good day to you if you're watching the recorded version of this webinar on YouTube. My name is P. Venkatraman, and I'm the Chief Running Evangelist of You Too Can Run. And our mission is to promote running for good health. As part of this mission to promote running, we do many things. And one of the things that we do is that we print and publish and we distribute this trainer's logbook. The purpose of the trainer's logbook is so that every trainer and trainee can record their progress, and they can see and evaluate whether they are making the correct progress, whether the training efficacy is correct. And it's beneficial for both to have a sign off on the relationship, and whether the relationship is healthy, pardon the pun, and delivering the results. So what we do in this series of webinars is that while the book is there, I use these webinars to take up one small aspect of the logbook, and it has about five major heads, and I expand on that, and I speak at length on each of those questions, each of those items. So basically, this series of webinars is like a complementary to the logbook itself and helps a trainer to understand how to use this logbook more effectively. So basically, it adds value to the trainers. Today, our topic is other factors. So in the logbook, we have many chapters: informed consent, initial survey, fitness evaluation. So in the chapter called pre-screening, initial screening, we have various sections, and we have other factors. So here we ask various questions to the training, and there are 7 questions in all. And today we'll go through the 7 questions, and I will, kind of give you my idea of what these questions mean and how I would deal with them. So the first question here is that, do you smoke, stroke, use tobacco in any form? So this is simple. I mean, yeah, nobody who's healthy should be consuming tobacco today. Person could be either smoking, or he could be having gutka, or having chewing tobacco, or snuff, as people used to do in the old ages. So any one of this can be considered as use of tobacco. I'm told that there is something new called e-cigarettes, so even that would be technically use of a tobacco. So tobacco is a stimulant. Besides being all the harmful things that it does, is that from an exercise physiology point of view, it is a stimulant. And because it is a stimulant, it kind of makes the heart beat faster. And that is something that you as a trainer must know and bear in mind when training a athlete who is on tobacco. So a trainee who is on tobacco cannot be pushed as much as a person who doesn't smoke. So that is the reason, and also to generally know if the person is healthy. If he's a regular smoker, then his pulmonary function is compromised. His propensity to cardiac disease is much more, and so many other factors. We all know the evil effects of smoking today. The second question is, do you use recreational drugs? Again, recreational drugs come in so many forms, and there are so many variations. But asking this question is very important, because you should know the habit habit patterns of the training. Third question, is there a family history of heart disease, diabetes, high BP? So this is a very important question, because this is one of the risk factors in determining whether a person is in high risk or moderate risk. So we have dealt with the risk factors in an earlier webinar, and it's all part of this playlist. But if the person has got a family history of heart disease, diabetes, or high BP, which are the three kind of lifestyle diseases which are like a unholy triumvirate that are silent killers today. And if there is a family history, it means two things. It means, one, genetically there is a predisposition to these diseases. That is one. But more important today, science says that it is not so much as the genes as the lifestyle that makes, or rather the lifestyle that activates the genes in a particular manner. So what this means is that the person may be having a family history of heart disease or diabetes or BP because the diet habits, the food habits of that family may not be desirable. So this may be something cultural, too many sweets or too many fried things. I'm just giving two examples. Maybe part of the traditional meal pattern of that family. And because of that, the ancestors of this person may have suffered from these diseases. So sometimes, you could just change things by changing the diet pattern or the meal pattern or the habits of the person. And the family history, which is taken as a pre-existing condition, could actually be reversed if one goes deeply into this question. The next question is that, are you generally stressed? Um, Stress is also a risk factor for heart disease. Stress is a risk factor for diabetes. Stress is a very major risk factor for high BP. A person who is angry, we know, has got high BP, start shouting. All are connected with each other. A lot of the stress hormones are released when the person is stressed, and that activates and aggravates the risk factor of all these diseases. So generally, asking whether the person is stressed is a important question. The resting heart rate of a person who is under stress is always higher than that of a person who is not stressed and who is very calm and peaceful. That's a very important factor to bear in mind. Do we consider yourself to be a type A personality? Now, type A and type B. Type A personality are the people who are aggressive. You know, if they want it done, it has to be done. They are the guys who will push. They are the workaholics. They will get angry if a certain thing is not done in a certain way. That is known as a type A personality. The type B personality, on the other hand, is somebody who's calm, composed, more accepting of things, not very ambitious, not very aggressive. He's a milder, calmer person. Generally, it is believed that a type A personality, the kind of guy who pushes and wants to be an achiever in life, is somebody who has a higher risk of diabetes, heart disease, and such other things. So it is nice to know that he's a type A personality, because in one way, positively, if you look at it, he is somebody who's goal driven. So he will adhere to the exercise prescription that you give for him, and he will stick to the training plan. But on the other hand, it is not desirable to be so much of a type A that it becomes a health risk factor for him. So it's a kind of mixed issue here. Next question: how many hours do you sleep on an average night? Usual bedtime, waking up time. So the average sleep that a person requires is about 6 to 8 hours, and so of course it can vary, but typically between 6 to 8 hours is considered a good enough sleep. Usual bedtime, waking up time, you need to know whether the guy works shifts, whether he sleeps on time, which today on time has practically become 9:30, 10, 10:30 in most families in urban areas of India. But ideally, one should have been sleeping 2 3 hours after sunset, which is what the circadian rhythm wants you to do. But because of artificial light, television, and lifestyle, we don't get to bed until it's about 10 10:30. So that has become the new usual bedtime. So taking that, and if you add 6 hours, you should be getting at about 5 5:30, 6 6:30, depending upon how much sleep he requires. So this will give you an idea of whether the trainee is well rested. Because if the trainee is well rested, then he can be trained better. If he is not rested, then uh, is his proprioception is lower, his agility is less, he's compromised, his reflexes are not as good because he's tired, he's sleepy. So your training also should be according to that, bearing that factor in mind. The last is, do you consider yourself sleep deprived? And many people don't know how to answer this question. Factors to help make the person understand whether he's sleep deprived are to ask him whether he feels sleepy in a meeting. In offices, there are people who are listening to somebody and they go to sleep, or whether they get to sleep in a train, or whether they sleep in a bus or in a car or in a train when they're traveling. Because if a person is sleep deprived and if he's not having anything to occupy him mentally, then the person lapses into a nod. yeah, 40 winks. Okay, so that is one of the most sure symptoms of somebody who is sleep deprived. So this is something that you can ask him, and he can then answer correctly whether he's sleep deprived. Of course, if he says he's sleep deprived, one of the things is to advise him or her to catch up on sleep and come for training only after adequate rest is taken, because recovery and rest are equally important components of training and good health. So this kind of completes the 7 questions of other factors. And thank you very much for being part of this. You can buy this book or can order it online. The web link to order it will be part of this video and we put down. If you are online and if you have questions to ask me, then you can type as I am speaking to you, and I have a monitor here on my left, and I can see what you're typing. I can read the text and I can answer you directly online. But if you are seeing the YouTube video recorded version, then we have a discussion forum comment thread under this video, and you can comment and ask questions, and I'll only be too happy to answer them for you. So choice is yours. So thank you very much for being part of the webinar today, and hopefully this was useful for you. Bookmark us, favorite us, subscribe to this channel, whatever you want to do, so that you will not miss all our future webinars. Thank you very much. Bye.